Would you like to learn how to use aromatics to make your favorite cocktails even tastier?
Well, today on WTF, we're joined by Wisniewski from Alice and the Magician to show us 4 great cocktails. A honey ginger penicillin, a peach mojito, a blueberry kombucha Collins, and a spice pear mimosa.
Hello and welcome to WTF, where we transform food here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen. I'm Janie Wang, one of the owners, and I'm here with Wisniewski of Alice and the Magician. And Aaron joined us last week for our part 1 on mocktails, but today he has returned for cocktails. Aaron, can you tell us a little bit about Alice and the Magician and what do you guys do?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back. It's great to be here, Janie. So at Alice and the Magician, we are obsessed with one thing, and that is aroma. And since scientifically speaking, about 85 to 90% of our perception of flavor comes from smell rather than taste, you can dramatically enhance the experience of drinking a cocktail or a mocktail by enhancing the aroma. And another fun fact about our sense of smell is that it's unique from all of our other senses in that it's the only one with a direct connection to the memory and emotion section of our brain. So it's a really important piece of the experience of drinking and not just the flavors in the glass.
And one of the really cool things about Alice and the Magician is that you have the 2 product lines. You have mists and you have elixirs. Can you explain what is the difference between them?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, most of your perception of flavor comes from smell. But what a lot of people don't realize is that we smell and taste in 2 distinct ways. The first one is through our nose. So even before we take a sip of a drink or a bite of a food, we're actually tasting it in a certain way through our nose, and we call that orthonosal olfaction. So our mists are designed to enhance that part of the eating or drinking experience. So as you're bringing the drink to your lips, that's when you're experiencing a lot of the aroma first, and your brain is telling you what flavors are going to be in the drink. Now, the second way we experience flavor is inside of our mouth, and we call that retronasal olfaction. And so our second line of products, our elixirs, are mixed into the drink, and that really enhances the flavors and the aromatics when you experience flavor in your mouth. And so you can try them and use them on their own, or even better, mix them together for the ultimate cocktail.
Yeah, and we've definitely used a lot of both in our different recipes that we've covered in WTF over the years, but we wanted to bring you in partially in order to share some of your favorite recipes where you think that the elixirs and the mist really brings out what's special about the cocktails. So today we're going to be covering 4 different recipes and going through each one, and Aaron's going to kind of walk you through why they work and what makes them great, and of course which elixir and mist really go well with them. So let's jump right into the first one. What is the first cocktail that we'll be making?
So the first cocktail is going to be a take on a classic cocktail called a penicillin. And a penicillin is a classic cocktail made with some kind of smoky Scotch whiskey, and it's a nice balanced cocktail. We're going to introduce some other flavors in there to make it a little bit more complex aromatically, and we're going to add some ginger into to give it a little bit of spice.
Very cool.
So, should we get started?
Yes.
Great. So the first ingredient is our Scotch whiskey. So we're going to add a little bit of Scotch whiskey. You don't have to be too picky about the type of Scotch whiskey you're going to use in this cocktail, but that little bit of smokiness is important. So that's our first ingredient. Next, we have a ginger and honey syrup that we made. So instead of using sugar for simple syrup, we used honey. And the honey, of course, itself not just adds sweetness, but the lovely aromatics of honey are really important too. And then by cooking some ginger in the simple syrup, we get a little of that ginger spice. Now, unfortunately, when we do that, we lose a lot of the freshness of the ginger, but we're going to add that back in with aromatics.
Okay.
Also, lemon juice, very important part of the cocktail to give it some balance, give it some tartness. Acidity, once again, is the backbone of a good cocktail. So these are our base ingredients. So we've got nice balance, sweet and sour. We've got Scotch whiskey in there. We've got some aroma from the honey and the ginger. But what we're going to do now is add ginger elixir from Alice and the Magician.
All right.
So we get this ginger from West Africa, and it's really, really sweet. It's really pungent, really aromatic, and really earthy too. So you get you can see the golden color. And it's pretty potent. I'm going to add 4 or 5 drops, and that should be plenty to give it the flavor that we want in the cocktail. And then we're going to add a little bit of ice.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've always loved about Alice and the Magician is that everything is, carefully sourced, small batch made. These are, really, truly high quality products made in Vermont, and we love them. We use them all the time here.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, I think a few times we even used them in non-beverage based recipes too.
They're really versatile. You can use them kind of anywhere you want to add flavor, and since they're just aroma, you can be really creative without having to worry about ruining anything. So even if you add a little too much, or you add not enough, or you think it might be the wrong thing, you're not going to mess anything up. You have complete carte blanche to do whatever you want.
Cool.
So now that the cocktail is nice and chilled down, I'm going to strain it into our classic Penicillin glass. Now you can use any glass you want, but this is a very classic glass for this cocktail. And so before we use Alice and the Magician, we are going to use a traditional garnish too. We're going to use just a little bit of lemon swath and just run that around the outside of the glass like that. And for the aromatic today is a rosemary and honey aromatic. So of course the honey in this is going to bring out the flavor of the honey, which is also going to make the drink taste a little bit sweeter than it actually is. One of the great things about aroma is that you can bring out the sweetness of drinks without necessarily adding more sugar or sweetener.
Okay, so I'm going to taste this before you do it because I want to have a compare. I mean, it's already very good, so I like that.
Great.
It's really nice.
And in this rosemary and honey aromatic, we've selected some really, really nice, rich, green, potent rosemary. And you can actually select rosemary to have what we call different chemotype. So some rosemary is very minty and cedary, and some is very deep and rich and green and sweet. And that's the one that we selected for this. So you get an excellent herbal element without having to muddle rosemary and make rosemary syrup. So just a couple mists, and you should be good to go.
Ooh. It tastes completely different now. So it's just suddenly a lot more complex, a lot smoother for me for some reason, but yeah, it tastes like a totally different drink just from a couple of squirts. I love that.
Click on one of these cards to check out another recipe from this episode.